Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Tuesday, September 9th meeting of the New Ulm Airport Advisory Commission. Let's begin with the approval of the minutes. You all have a copy of last month's minutes? I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of September 9th. Wait, well, this is September 9th. August 12th, sorry.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's finished. Let's talk about the status of the taxiway reconstruction project. I guess that would be you, right?
That would be me. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Airport Board, and members of the city. Thank you for inviting us to come out tonight to talk a little bit about the project. I am Brian Page with Mead and Hunt, project manager for the ongoing taxiway project. And tonight I have joining me Evan Barrett, one of our lead planners in our Minneapolis office, that is going to talk a little bit to item 2B. But for the time being, we'll talk a little bit about the taxiway project. And just to bring everybody up to speed, I did a little bit earlier distribute a kind of an update, if you would, to what's going on at the airport as far as the progress is concerned. I did distribute a weekly progress report, and I have a copy of it here, although you're not going to be able to read it all the greatest. But with that being said, what I'll do is I'll give Ryan a copy of mine so he can kind of follow along. But the main gist of it is that the project is going along very nicely. We are approximately about 50% complete, probably a little bit more than that, probably closer to 60% complete with the overall project at this point. The weekly progress report that you're looking at right now is actually tracking about 2 weeks ago, and over that 2-week period, the weather has just been fantastic. So we've really made some pretty good progress and some pretty good strides in getting things wrapped up. So they did get the base course and started today, and that is going in over the top of the sand, the backfill, the sub-base material that was placed over the last several weeks. And once the base course goes in, next thing to do is to roll that out and get density on it and compact it. And once that takes place, the next step is going to be to put the pavement on that entire south end of the taxiway. In other words, if you remember the project, the way we had it laid out, it's basically the phase 2 part of the project. So the schedule is showing to be able to wrap up paving by the first part of October. Once the paving is wrapped up, the next steps will be is to come in and do the pavement marking. There will be a little bit of a period of time that we'll have to wait after the pavement is down before it can be marked. The next steps will be is to come in to put the lighting and signing on that south end of the taxiway. And then the final thing, of course, would be to come in and do the landscaping. So the end is near. We are looking at and excited about wrapping things up, hopefully before Halloween is kind of the goal or the overall target that the contractor has given us at this point. So weather cooperating, we're looking forward to getting things wrapped up by then. So we're looking at a pretty good project to wrap things up. Looking at financially, the nice thing about this that you can see from the report is we are tracking basically about the same amount of complete in dollar figures as what we are in time, which is always a good litmus test that you're tracking pretty well. When one or the other seems to be a little bit out of whack as opposed to the other, you got to start asking some questions, what's going on here. But so far so good. We're at about 50% on the dollars, and we're about 50% on the time. So things are looking good as far as that goes. As far as I know, everything went off well over the weekend with the festivities out at the airport on Sunday. The contractor was able to put up enough safety precautions that we didn't have any incidents. Although I guess a piece of the safety fence kind of got blown away with one of the helicopters, but nevertheless it was put back in place again and everything seemed to be just fine. So with that, I guess I would entertain any questions that anybody would have, I guess, regarding the project.
We can plan on the whole thing being complete by winter.
We will, everything will be done before the cold weather and the winter sets in. The taxiway will be completely finished at that point. In some cases, Mr. Chairman, there are some punch list items that, say for instance, the landscaping in particular comes to mind, that chances are we'll have to withhold a little bit of retainage until next spring just to make sure, ensure that all of the grass seed and all of the landscaping and everything takes root, because we will be putting that landscaping in pretty late in the year. You know, there's probably about a 2-week window starting right about now that you want to get, like if you were planting your own lawn or something along those lines. There's about a 2-week window right now, but after that, things get a little bit more rocky as to whether or not it's going to germinate and take root or not. But we will get the landscaping in, and the contractor will be required to warranty that for up to a year after the final acceptance. So it could be that there might be some odds and ends to do next spring, but for the most part, the taxiway will be completely open, end to end, and fully functional.
And the lighting will be there in place?
The lighting will be in place as well.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to mention there was some concrete repair, replacement, and crack seal work on the concrete apron. The contractor and subcontractor were able to complete that prior to the fly-in breakfast, which was kind of a goal of ours, and I had plenty of cure time on it. So that portion has all been completed. So if you ever get a chance to look at it, we took out some areas that were uneven and cracked, and I think it came out pretty well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No?
No.
I don't have anything. Okay, shall we move on then to item B, the relocated crosswind runway development?
Absolutely. I'll just briefly report that we are excited about moving forward with the project. The agreement is now in place. As a result of our last meeting, we moved forward with coordinating that with the city. The agreement is in place, and now we're in the process of getting started with that project. And to talk a little bit more about the details, I have Evan Barrett here with me tonight. And Evan would like to talk a little bit about the overall process, and then talk a little bit about the time frame and the schedule that we have moving forward. So with that.
Can I get your first and last name, please, and spelling?
Yes, my name is Evan Barrett, and I'm a planner with Mead and Hunt.
EVAN?
EVANBARRETT.
Okay.
As Brian mentioned, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. We are excited to get started on this project. As Brian mentioned, I'm a planner out of our Minneapolis office. I've been involved with many similar studies to these, and looking at what's justified for federal funding for runway and taxiway projects and all sorts of airport projects. And this particular project is kind of like a focused master plan. You know, in a master plan for an airport, you look at all the different facilities, and this is really a master planning exercise in a way. It's looking at the crosswind runway and how it interacts with all of the other pieces of the airport to make sure that the runway is being designed for the right aircraft and it's being put in the right place. And that's really what the FAA and MnDOT are asking us to do as part of this study. There was quite a bit of planning and environmental work that was done for a crosswind runway project back in the late 2000s. There was a crosswind runway relocation alternative that was selected as part of those processes, and it now appears on your airport layout plan. We'll be looking at that proposed runway relocation project and making sure that the project as it's depicted on that airport layout plan makes the most sense from the perspective of your users and the needs of the community. So essentially, the reason that the FAA and MnDOT have asked us to do this study is because that planning and environmental work is now 5 or 6 years old. And although that doesn't sound like a whole lot of time, a lot of things change in that amount of time. And the main things that have changed are a lot of the federal and state requirements for runway projects. And that includes land use guidance, taxiway and runway design guidance, environmental requirements, and there was a recent update to the state aviation system plan, which changed some of the objectives associated with planning for airports that we'll take into account as well. There's also some discussions that the state DOT is having throughout the state with different stakeholders regarding airport zoning. And as far as zoning for the future crosswind runway, will be something we'll be looking at very closely and coordinating with MnDOT to make sure that whatever we do plan for at the airport is positioning the airport to be in compliance with whatever those future requirements might be. So there's a lot of those federal and state requirements that we're looking at as part of this study and the things that have changed. There's also a lot of things that have changed at the airport during that time. There's some new approach procedures to your primary runway that have different criteria in terms of airspace and land use associated with them. There's also, of course, the runway and taxiway work that Brian and others at MnDOT have been doing over the last several years. There's all the land acquisition projects that you've been doing at the airport. And then there's all the new development that you have in the airport vicinity, including retail and residential and all of those things. So the idea with this study is to look at that crosswind runway project that was previously proposed, and does it make sense in the environment we are today? There's a schedule in front of you I've passed out that shows how the project will proceed. This planning study will proceed kind of in a perfect world. So we're looking at a 12-month window for getting everything complete, understanding that sometimes we find out things during the planning process that cause the schedule to bump out a little bit, but generally speaking, we'll have the study completed by this time next year is our goal. And during those 12 months, we'll have 3 different rounds of working papers that we'll bring to you and ask for your input on. The first round will look at all of the previous planning and environmental work that's been done, and all the existing conditions and how they're different from how they were 5-6 years ago when that planning work was done. And then there will also be a piece of that first round of working papers that looks at the type of aircraft using the runway, using the crosswind runway. And because the airport is a non-towered airport, there aren't any detailed statistics out there on the type of aircraft using the runway. So what we'd like to do is reach out to the users of the airport, the based aircraft users, and see how often they're using the crosswind runway, what type of aircraft they're flying, how often they're doing it, so that we can show the agencies at the federal and state level, okay, these are the aircraft we should plan for your crosswind runway. So that'll be the first round of working papers, and we expect to deliver those to you by the end of this year. Second round will be once we have FAA and MnDOT approval on the types of aircraft and the forecasted operations we should be planning for. We'll take a look at, okay, what does that mean in terms of design requirements like safety area, runway length, wind coverage for the crosswind runway. And so essentially those are the pieces that are in the what's called the purpose and need that was done for the crosswind runway project as part of the previous environmental document. And so what we hope to do with that second round of working papers is confirm or deny whether that purpose and need should remain the same or if there should be some adjustments to it. And then finally, the third round of working papers will look at different alternatives for the crosswind runway. So after we've just determined how wide it should be, how long it should be, what safety areas should be associated with it, we'll look closely at what was proposed previously, but we'll also look at other ideas that might reduce environmental impact, might reduce land acquisition or other things. So that's that third round of working papers that we'll be probably discussing, hopefully, late spring, early summer. So you'll see at the bottom of the schedule here, there's a number of green bullets, and those are the times in the second row of those green bullets that you'll probably expect to see me again. With that first round of working papers, we'll deliver those probably to the agencies first to get their concurrence with what we're proposing to plan for. And of course, I mean, as far as the background information, that's a lot of things that probably many of you are already intimately familiar with. But I will be back when we're talking about facility requirements and alternatives, because we'll be looking for some input on whether certain concepts for the crosswind make sense, whether the facility requirements that we propose actually reflect what's happening at the airport. So the commission should expect to see me again. I'll probably come with Brian a couple times early next year to discuss some of those rounds of working papers. And with the end goal of this whole study being, what are our next steps to relocating the Crosswind runway? And that's the development plan that's listed right above the milestones there. That'll identify, okay, this is what you should plan for, and this is where we recommend that you put it. What do you do next? And that could, depending on what the study recommends, that could be any number of things. It could be an update to your airport layout plan. It could be that there might need to be some additional environmental work that needs to be done in order to get federal and state approval and funding for relocating the runway, and a host of other things. So that's really the goal of this study, is to confirm what should be planned for as far as a crosswind runway at the airport and how to get there. So that was quite a bit of information. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them now. No. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item, C, is feedback and discussion regarding the decommissioning the NDB.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe just take a second to, kind of mention, Evan is very well versed in going through this process, and I know some of you have probably said, well, my goodness, I mean, the planning work and so forth that we've done to this point for that crosswind runway, it almost feels that we're kind of taking a step backwards. And if one thing, you can see the level of complexity that my colleague Evan has kind of laid out, that the FAA and the state agencies take this stuff pretty seriously in today's day and age, and trying to get them to come along with the process is crucial to making sure the success of any project of that magnitude and undertaking. So to say the least, that's what all of that entails, is bringing the state agencies and the federal agencies along for the ride. And right now they're coming around, but it's going to take a little more work to get them there. Plus, there's a few bases that do need to be covered that weren't covered back in the original planning stages of the project. So anyway, just want to take an opportunity there, and we got a great person on board, I guess, to help us out with that process. So talk a little bit about the feedback on the potential NDB decommissioning. At our last meeting, we talked a little bit about reaching out to the airport users, the tenants, people who use the airport most, and getting some feedback from them as to how they felt about the proposal of decommissioning that equipment. Just to recap a little bit, there would be some investment that the city would have to make in addition to the state and the feds in order to be able to keep that system operational, namely the power feed going out to it and the control wiring. Would have to be redone in order to be able to keep the system operational. So that was really kind of the reason why we looked into it. As a result of the last meeting, we did reach out to the tenants. We got some help through Robin at the flight service out there to help us do that. She sent out a kind of an email questionnaire, if you would, to the airport tenants that she had on record. We did get a pretty good, robust amount of responses, which was surprising. And the two questions that were posed was, one is to how they felt about decommissioning the NDB. The second one is about how they felt about possibly decommissioning the pavement condition sensors that were on the primary runway. As far as question one is concerned, all of the responses came back that all the users and the tenants that responded all felt that the NDB could be decommissioned. There was nobody that really said, hey, wait a minute, that's the only approach or instrument approach that I have to get in and out of there. Nobody made that claim. They all basically resoundingly said that they could do without it going forward. So I did want to report that information back, as I said I would at the meeting here. As far as the pavement condition sensor is concerned, or question number 2, that was a little bit more of a mixed response. I would say it was probably split down the middle. There was a number of users that said that they were fairly indifferent to it, but the ones that there were half that did respond back and said that they thought it would be a good idea if we kept that service available out at the airport. What that is, just to kind of briefly describe it, it's a sensor that's actually installed in the pavement, the runway pavement itself, and what it does, it reports certain conditions, freezing conditions, whatever the case may be, back to the weather station that's in the terminal building that can subsequently be connected to for any pilot that is wondering, okay, what is the ground conditions there at New Ulm? And that information is critical to some airport and aircraft users of the airport. And it sounds like there is some interest to keep that system in place. Now, my conversations with MnDOT about that, that is a MnDOT owned and maintained type system, and they would be happy to come out and do the infrastructure and install the infrastructure to put the system back in place again. The one thing that they did point out is they said that the location of it, if some of you are familiar with the airport, is you're taxiing down taxiway, the parallel taxiway to the runway, and going south, you'll see that white box that's just on the western edge or on the western shoulder of the taxiway just south of the crosswind runway. That's what that box is. It's just a white box that kind of sits out in the middle of the infield there. That is the control box that sensor information comes back to, and from that point is radio controlled back to the terminal building, is the way it operates currently. Well, it's out of service currently, but that's how it did operate before it was taken out of service. MnDOT had indicated to us that if they put the system back in service again, what they would like to do and prefer to do is to take the pavement sensors and put them down on the runway 15 end, or in essence on the north end of the primary runway, and then put that control box unit out there co-located with the midfield wing cone and also the rest of the weather station information. The nice part about doing that would be is power is more readily accessible at that site. In addition to the control wiring, they've already got control wiring to run from that site going back to the terminal building, which is a much better and a more, I guess, preferred choice, if you would, to run that control and to run that information feed from that unit back to the terminal. Because what was happening before, as I mentioned, it was radio controlled previously, and during times of bad conditions, whatever the case may be, probably when you need it most, the weather could alter the effect of that radio control. So this way it'll be hardwired back to the terminal building and can get in there and give more reliable service, for the future. So again, just to recap, the resounding, input from the airport users was the NDB ADF system could go away, which would mean that one approach would also be eliminated for the airport. But as far as the pavement condition sensors are concerned, there were several pilots that indicated a want or a need to keep that service available at the airport. So that's what I know.
Now, what about the cost? Would the city have to bear the cost of, well, if the wiring's already there wouldn't be a lot of cost, would there? Or does it have to be a new system that is wired rather than wireless?
The system will be put in and installed by MnDOT, so there will be no cost to the city.
Oh, okay.
So it'd just be a matter of coordinating it with MnDOT folks and making sure that, everything gets, installed correctly. Now, there's a possibility what MnDOT may do is they may look to the existing electrical contractor that's out there for the taxiway work, may look at subcontracting or change ordering this work into their contract and just having them install that equipment. There's a few things that, I guess, based on, the Airport Commission's desire, there would be a few things coordinative that we would need to do to make sure all that comes to fruition. I'm not sure about the equipment. That would be something else that would have to be evaluated. The equipment that's out there, it's been out there a few years. So it's possible that MnDOT may look at replacing some of that control equipment. Certainly, there'd have to be new pavement sensors put in, new infrastructure wiring to go out to those pavement sensors, and the rest of it. So, but if the commission desires us to move forward on that, we can start that coordinated process with MnDOT just as early as tomorrow.
Okay. I guess, I
want a motion?
don't know, can I make a motion? I'm the chair, I really can't.
Well, I can
I-
make a motion.
Yeah,
Make a
I mean,
motion.
actually, two motions, I think.
I think there's two here.
Two, yeah,
yes.
the first one is that we recommend to, I guess we recommend to the city council, I guess, that we decommission the NDB approach system. And the second, that we do install a runway condition monitor, whatever you call that thing, and, but, and do it under the changes that you've just outlined.
I agree.
Would that
There are two
kinda
motions.
get it, yeah, so it's, can we do them together? And we should be able to do them together, though, I think.
So,
Well, let's do them separate, then we.
Let's do 'em
then it's-
separate, I think,
then-
yeah.
Yeah, then we got a good clear. Okay, number one.
Number one, then that NDB, I make a motion that we decommission NBP.
NDP.
NDP. Want a BLT?
NDP.
Directional beacon. that's
Yeah,
what it's-
yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm hungry.
non-directional beacon.
I'll
so
second.
NDB.
And the next one,
I'll second. Then we need to
Okay,
vote.
we gotta, just, we gotta, okay. So all in favor, say aye.
oh, yeah,
Aye.
aye.
Aye, okay, yeah. Besides, there's
Motion.
hardly anybody around who knows how to fly NDB approaches anymore.
That's true.
I can still do it, but I'm not sure I want
I
to.
can do it in VFR. Okay, second motion.
Second motion, I'll make the directional, I don't know, the runway,
Move forward with the runway runway
Condition,
condition,
Pavement conditions.
pavement condition.
Runway.
Runway.
yeah, pavement condition
Sensors.
sensors, there we go.
There you go. Okay.
I second.
Okay, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that's done. Brian, what does,
Yes, sir.
refresh my memory, what does that, that system, or the new system, let's put it that way, a new system, what does it evaluate? What parameters do you get?
The parameters are going to basically be surface temperature, any icing conditions, things like that, that would be relevant to, flying in, basically all weather type conditions. It's going to let you know, I guess, what's happening there on the ground. There were some questions, I guess, raised by the gentleman that I was speaking with MnDOT, that would anybody have any objections if we put that on the runway 15 end rather than right now? It's closer to the runway 33 end. The runway 33 end, if you know, has a little bit more capability of an approach lighting system and so forth on that end. But there again, his general recommendation is, one end or the other really isn't going to make that much of a difference. It's still going to report, the similar information on one end as opposed to the other. Some airports do it depending on a location of where they're at. Do they have more, wind activity, which could, in essence, alter the amount of freezing and so forth occurring on one end or the other? I don't think you really have that problem to really be concerned with here. The prior location where the sensors were located was pre-runway extension period of time. So even if we were to go back to the same location where the box is currently sitting, it's going to be probably about midpoint of the runway, at that point, so it's not really going to actively or more accurately report one end or the other. But again, for the reasons that we described, right now they have to radio control all of the information back to the terminal, so it's better if you put it up there on the 15 end, and you're going to end up with a much more reliable system. But again, the reason that it's used is just what's happening on the ground as far as freezing temperatures go, what is really happening there, or in cases where it's really hot, what's happening out there, what is that surface temperature of that pavement at the time. So, it's good information, particularly for jet aircraft, is almost, one of those things that would be a requirement if you're going to have sustained jet aircraft at the airport. It's one of those things that you're going to want to make sure that you got a good pavement sensor system out there. If you don't, look at putting one in your capital improvement program. But the nice part about it is since MnDOT owns and maintains it, MnDOT will take care of it for you. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. So then these two motions then are a recommendation to the city council. Now, how does that, you take that to the city council?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll forward them on to the city council. I don't
Okay.
anticipate anything but accepting your recommendation.
Okay.
And then Brian and Mead and Hunt will work with MnDOT to make sure they get completed.
Okay.
I should be able to get them on the next council meeting next week.
Okay. And we need to set the next meeting for Tuesday, October 14th, if possible. I'm available. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'd be available.
Okay. Okay. Any other business?
Not that I know of.
Hearing none, we need a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion that we adjourn the Airport Commission meeting.
For today, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.